Hello, this is Mark Serwotka, the General Secretary of PCS, with a very important message on the Union's national campaign for fair pay, pensions, justice and job security. Yesterday, your National Executive Committee met and we took important decisions on the next stage of our campaign. Firstly, we want to thank all members and branches who responded in huge numbers to the recent consultation. Over 160 branches responded and hundreds of members gave us their views. And I think it's important, therefore, that we start by accepting what we all agree. We all agree that because of your campaign, your industrial action, 3 national days of strikes, hundreds of days of targeted action, paying the levy to enable us to support colleagues to take strike action on everyone's behalf, and turning out in massive numbers on pickets and demonstrations, has for the first time in the Union's history forced a UK national government to put more money on the table. Indeed, nearly £5 billion will now go into members' pockets as a result of our campaign. And the concessions they've made are important. A £1,500 one-off non-consolidated payment, a pay rise of between 4.5% and 5% on average to be negotiated with each individual employer, guarantees that your redundancy terms cannot be cut under this government before a general election, and important talks on national civil service pay that will allow us to deal with the problems of unequal pay across the civil service and critically the problems around low pay, with the national living wage now being paid to so many members that people doing different graded work get the same money. All of that is unfair and all of that has been challenged by our campaign. So those concessions are welcome, but we're very clear and you were very clear they're not enough. The £1,500 payment should be consolidated. But it's completely unfair that the government has chosen to penalise part-time workers, the majority of whom are women, by making that payment pro rata. It's also unfair that they put some qualifying conditions that are unacceptable for some small groups of members. Also, although overwhelmingly of the 212 employers in the dispute, employers have agreed to pay the money, a very small amount of employers have so far still refused. So what we've decided is this. The government's concessions are welcome, but they're nowhere near enough. But the next step of our campaign is really important. Members have made it clear that they want to know whether you work in a devolved administration, whether you work in an arm's length body, or whether you work in the main civil service. People want to know what consolidated pay rise they're going to get in 2023. They also want to know whether the talks we're having are going to bring any further improvements. And crucially, people also want to know whether our pensions legal challenge is successful. And if it's not, how we can continue to put pressure on the government to get you back the money that many of you have overpaid, over £2,000, because your pension contributions are 2% too high. So the executive concluded that it would be a mistake to just call further strike action now, when many members still need to ballot to get a new mandate, when many other public sector unions are not continuing to take industrial action, that what we should do is get into the talks that your strikes have won so that you all know exactly how much money you're going to get and whether or not we've made any progress on the national pay talks and the pensions legal challenge. To that end, we're going to ballot all members and we're going to ask you whether you agree with our strategy. That strategy is this. We get into the talks, we insist that we still need pay rises that are consolidated, that are more than the cost of inflation. We take into account whether other public sector workers are now going to get 6.5%, as is rumoured from pay review bodies, and make sure your employer gives us an acceptable amount of money. Until we know what that's going to be, you don't know how much money you're going to get. Also, we've taken the view that if we're going to take further strike action, not only do you need to know how much you're getting this year, but you also need to know whether the national talks have done something about the systemic problems in our pay, particularly around the issues of the national living wage. So we should be clear. We're asking you to agree the campaign should continue, but we're asking you to also agree that we should pause the industrial action until we know the outcome of the talks, and then we should make an assessment on whether we've got enough or whether we need to take further industrial action later in the year. If that is the case, we now know it's more likely that other public sector unions will also be taking action towards the end of the year, particularly teachers who have voted to strike in the autumn if the government do not give them the pay review body's recommendation. First and foremost, however, we're also asking you now to support that all members should get the £1,500. So we should support any colleagues taking strike action because the employer won't give it to them, and we should also support the union continuing to campaign to ensure all part-time workers get the full £1,500 and it's not prorated. So thanks for listening to this short video message. Please look out now for further union literature and leaflets, and most importantly, look out for your ballot paper that will arrive in early August to make sure you can have your say. This is a member-led union. It's up to you now to tell us, do you agree with the strategy we're proposing to take the campaign forward or not? Thanks very much.